Alright everybody, welcome back after an extra long absence. Yes, we took last week off and we are back now to discuss everything that's been going on in Salem on this week's edition of In Between Days, where we talk about everything that's been going on Days of Our Lives, everyone's favorite soap. We're going to switch things up a little bit this week, and we are going to first listen to the preview video for this week coming up on Days of Our Lives, and then we're going to go back and we're going to talk about everything that's been going on, yes, including that controversial, polarizing storyline as once again Marlena Evans is possessed by the devil. Happy Halloween everyone, and we'll be back in just a second.
We could grab a bottle of champagne and then go upstairs. What do you say?
What if our child really does end up evil?
Alright, so what we can see from that preview video is things between Chad and Abby are going to progress as she is now back home, so we'll see if they take their relationship to the next level and begin to come back together. We also have Abe in that video proposing to Paulina, and perhaps the most intriguing of all is Ben takes Sierra's advice and goes and sees Marlena, as he is a patient of hers, but what he doesn't know is that when he goes for advice and speaks to Marlena, he does not know that Marlena obviously has been possessed. Once again, after 26 years, Marlena has been possessed by the devil. And on that note, we are going to get into our recap discussion. Obviously, we skipped a week, and it didn't actually feel like it because not that much really happened during the week that we were off. We have not done an episode for 2 weeks as opposed to 1 week, but ironically this is going to be a short and sweet recap, unless we get into the weeds more than I have planned, which may actually happen because I may get into the weeds in terms of talking about the old possession storyline versus the new possession storyline, and just some things about the old possession storyline in general, which, by the way, I have been watching this show for decades, and I was not a fan of the original possession storyline. I know it's very polarizing, and we're gonna go along for the ride, and there's actually some really good things about this new possession storyline. Yes, I actually said that, and as I was saying it, I had to convince myself to finish that sentence. But if you want to take into consideration Doug's involvement in the storyline and his age and how he's been given, as many fans have pointed out, a front burner storyline to be a part of, all of that I am in favor of. I think Doug has done some really good acting, and it's been interesting how things have begun to progress in terms of this revisitation of the Marlena being possessed by the devil storyline, and of course we're going to jump more into that in just a second. But what I did want to say is I have enjoyed seeing Doug on screen more, and I'm glad that he's able to do that at his age. Is absolutely fantastic, and of course we've gotten to see more of Julie as well. But I feel like we have, at least for now, more questions than answers. So in the old possession storyline, the reason that Marlena was able to get possessed by the devil is she was susceptible because there was a lot going on in her life, and I don't want to get too deep into it, but she was still basically with Roman and had feelings for John because of course she had been married to John when everyone thought that John was Roman, and she was kind of ostracized. She was an outcast at the time. The entire town was upset with her over what she did, and of course Sammy was the one who walked in on them having the affair. I think it was either in Titan Towers or the Penthouse Grill. Not really important. I know we've went over that in previous episodes, and everyone kind of knows the history. If you're here, you're a super fan and you know the history, so we don't have to get too deep into it. But the point I'm trying to make is, how did the devil possess Doug? What has Doug done in the last 30 or 40 years that was so terrible? I know he came onto the show years ago in probably the late 70s as a con man, but Doug is just a gentle guy. So how was it that the devil was able to possess Doug if we are supposed to have this basic understanding that, at least based on the last possession, if we're going to have some consistency and continuity, then what exactly occurred that made it possible for the devil to possess Doug? So I think that's where we're going to start off with things. Actually, let's leave the really juicy stuff maybe for the end. So I'm gonna start with Sammy, who's been off screen. So there's a teaser for you. I'm gonna back up. I'm gonna start with Sammy. Sammy has been off screen for some time, so I'm gonna start with that because no one is looking for Sammy. No one is really suspect as to where she is. They're just taking it as at face value that she got upset after she was exposed in terms of having that affair with Lucas while married to EJ. She was exposed. She quote-unquote left town. Of course, we all know as the audience that she was kidnapped, but not a single character is questioning where Sammy is or why they haven't heard from her. Of course, she did send out, I believe, some texts, or somebody did, but that doesn't really explain anything in terms of why people in Salem, at least her close friends and relatives, why they are not more suspicious that they have not heard anything from her. We also didn't get very much Kate and Roman this week, so I'll just talk about Kate and Roman. They are teasing that relationship again. Maybe it will develop, maybe it will not. But right now they are talking a little bit about, they're teasing a little bit about Kate and Roman again. It looks like they're going to visit that again. And Philip even mentions to Kate, either this past week or the week that we missed, that if Kate had her own love relationship, maybe she would not be as invested or worried about her children and their relationships. Now, I don't believe that for a second, because if you know the history of Kate, she's always been hyper involved in her children's love lives, starting with Lucas and of course later with Billy and Austin when she found out that those two were her children. And I won't even touch the Rex and Cassie stuff, because I don't really feel like going over the alien twins today, but those are another two, one of her children. Another two... did I really just say that? Those are another two, one of her children. Those are another two of her children, technically speaking, I suppose. The alien twins that she somehow had with Roman. Now, that was another time that I was questioning what the heck I was doing even watching this show when the alien twins showed up. And of course, we talked last episode about the strange virtual Garden of Eden that Austin and Greta once were in. We talked about that because they referred to it in Beyond Salem. So those were some of the beyond tolerable, beyond reasonable storylines that I can recall. But speaking of all that, we're going to get into this devil possession stuff in a minute. Let's talk first about Ben and Sierra. You can see that I'm kind of anxious to talk about the possession storyline, but also trying to leave it for as much as I possibly can, because once I get into it, I just don't know how it's going to go, because I don't know what to make of it all. I'm personally thinking that perhaps some original ideas, rather than visiting ones that were polarizing, they might have worked in the past, but they were polarizing and they were a little bit too campy. Maybe we could not go in that direction and maybe go more in the direction of Beyond Salem. Give us some adventures. Give us Shane Donovan and the ISA and some adventure storyline where everybody has to kind of come together and figure something out. That's kind of more my whatever. But like I said, I came to a crossroads and I decided, all right, I'm going to see where this possession storyline goes. It is the Halloween season, and hopefully it won't go past let's just hope that by Valentine's Day, nobody's possessed by any devils. That's what I'm hoping. Can we, at least by mid-February, be over and done with this and perhaps not think of it again? But in the meantime, we are here now, and it is what it is. So I mentioned Ben going to visit Marlena next week. This week, Ben admitted to Sierra that he doesn't want to pass on his genes genetically to his son because of his history with mental illness and the fact that he was, well, there's really no talking around it, is it? He was a serial killer that the writers did their best to redeem, but now they are looking at his history, and when he is faced with the concept of bringing a child into the world, he doesn't want to pass those genes, those traits onto a child. He doesn't want to have a son, in other words, or a daughter that becomes a murderer or something of that nature, which makes a lot of sense. So aside from some of the more obvious reasons to ponder having a child in 2021, like the pandemic and climate change and the end of days, not the show, by the way, Ben is not really worried about necessarily all of that, but he is worried about passing on his traits, certain traits, to his child. So he talks to Sierra about that, and she suggests that perhaps he go and see Marlena and talk it out, get some advice. And in Sierra's word, if anybody knows how to help or talk with him through this, it would be Marlena. At least the Marlena that we all know and love. Perhaps not a Marlena that has been possessed by the devil. Ben also has this campy bad dream where his son, who is in the dream about, I don't really know, but his son was older and had killed the babysitter basically with one of his father's neckties, and Ben wakes up and obviously is upset, and that's when he talks about things with Sierra. So little Bo Brady Weston, Bo Jr., had killed his babysitter with a necktie, and Ben was very upset by that. Next week he does go and talk to Marlena, so we'll see what kind of advice the possessed Marlena gives to Ben. Also, this week EJ paid a visit to Nicole, and I just want to say that this EJ is doing an awesome job. I like the acting. I might even prefer him more than the original EJ at this point. I know that's a controversial thing to say, probably, but I at least like him just as much in terms of his acting and his chemistry with everybody on screen. The only person that I don't think he worked very well with, no, I take that back, he worked fine with her, but I didn't see too much romantic chemistry between this EJ and Sammy. But that's kind of not too much of an issue because I don't see them pushing the EJ and Sammy couple in the future anyhow. And what I did notice is with his brothers on screen and with other people such as Rafe and their history, their tumultuous history, and his history as well with Lucas, all of that was played very well. And now that we see him with Nicole, who obviously is an ex-wife of his, that has gelled very well as well, in my opinion. So I wouldn't mind seeing more of EJ and Nicole. Of course, Nicole is very busy between breaking up with Eric and that ending. She's already interested in Rafe, and of course Rafe is with Ava. And I knew there was something I forgot to jot down when I was preparing for this episode here, because I didn't write anything down about Gabby. I didn't write anything about her and Ava and Rafe, but of course Gabby and Jake, just off the top of my head, wanted to move back into the Demira mansion, but Gabby found out that EJ is now the rightful owner of that house again, and he kicks them out, so they go back to Rafe's house and try to smooth fences, because things obviously have been not so good between Gabby and Rafe's, I guess I'll just call her Rafe's girlfriend, Ava. So yeah, a lot going on there between Ava Vitale and Gabriela Hernandez. They don't get along too well. So Rafe is dating Ava. Gabby doesn't like it. Gabby and Jake are trying to take over Titan from Philip, and Gabriela is not very on very good terms with Ava, obviously, and the twist to that is that Ava overhears some plotting between Gabby and Jake, and she goes to Philip with that information. So it appears that Ava has negotiated herself a job because she has this information on Gabby and Jake, and it seems like Ava is going to work with Philip to oust Gabby and Jake. But I don't think any of that's going to come to fruition, because I think that Brady is onto the scheme. And so there's some stuff that I didn't even remember to write down, because I'm not honestly too into that storyline of who's going to be the next CEO or who's co-CEOs. They tried that before, I believe, on the Titan side. Now they're trying it on the Demira side, with EJ and Chad being the co-CEOs, and it's just a big mess, and honestly not all that interesting. But that's what's going on with that. Another thing that I didn't write down this week, because I don't think a lot of it actually happened this week. I think it was last week, the week we missed. But Bonnie and Justin. So Bonnie, if you don't recall, is still in jail, and Justin has agreed to assist with getting her out of jail. And I think we talked in the last episode about how Bonnie confessed everything to Justin, so we'll see where that goes. But Justin is sticking behind Bonnie and trying to get her out of jail. I guess we won't jump too much into that stuff. You all know what's going on as well with Xander and all of that, in as well as Gwen and Jack. So we won't be getting too into the Xander, Gwen, and Jack stuff, because I don't think we got a lot of that this week. Let's talk about Chanel and Johnny. So Chanel tells Johnny that he should not mess with the devil. He should not make this movie. The movie, of course, was something that Johnny decided he wanted to make after reading his brother Will's script of the Sammy Brady story. When he found out that in the script Sammy was possessed by the devil, he began to focus in on that, or rather Marlena, Sammy's mother, was possessed by the devil. So Johnny began to focus on that part of the movie and began to decided that he wanted to make a movie more about Marlena being possessed by the devil and focus in on that part of the script than all the other stuff that happened to Sammy, which I guess the writers on some level decided too. We had all this history of Days of Our Lives that we could have drummed up a storyline with, but we went back to the devil possession because, hey, it's Halloween and we like writing campy shit. Let's be honest. Campy shit. I wasn't going to go there, but I guess I just did. So Chanel tells Johnny not to mess with the movie. Johnny is still very much wanting to make this movie. He actually asks Chanel to come over and watch The Exorcist with him, which she does, but I don't think she enjoys that experience too much, as she is not into horror movies and still thinks that the whole idea of Johnny messing with this movie is just tempting the devil, and who wants to do that? But I have a question, because a lot of the comments that you see on forums about this storyline are very similar to what Chanel said about tempting the devil. So there's a lot of people out there that think just watching this, just writing about this, is just talking about this is tempting the devil into your life. So Chanel with those comments was kind of reflecting that, which I found interesting, because that means that on some level it must have occurred to the writers that there would be a lot of viewers that would feel the way that Chanel feels. So ironically, is not talking about this, is not writing about this, is not putting this storyline on tempting the devil. That is for you to decide. I know that there are serious rumors out there that 25, 26 years ago, when the cast was doing this storyline, that they used to do prayer circles before and or after to, I don't know, cleanse the area, cleanse themselves, and maybe like make sure that the devil wasn't going to possess them, however you want to look at it. But that's just a point I wanted to make, is Chanel's perspective on canvas is how a lot of fans feel in general about this polarizing storyline. Anyhow, Johnny wants Abby to play Marlena in the movie, so he talks to her about that, and she seems kind of, after a little bit of talking, into the idea, which surprises Chad. So we'll find out if Abigail is actually going to go forward and play Marlena in this movie of Johnny's. Probably this movie isn't going to be made, obviously, but for now, we'll just go with it, and we'll see what happens. Tony... Okay, here's something very important. This is something I went over in a previous episode, and maybe we'll go over it quickly again if I can deal with this off the top of my head. But we have to think about the storyline with the devil possession 25, 26 years ago. I keep saying 25, 26. They're saying 25, but I think it actually might have been more like 26 years ago. But anyhow, so we need to think about all the people that were in Salem at the time of the original possession, because none of those people, for the most part, are on the show now. So you've got Kristen Demira, who is kind of on the show, but kind of isn't. The original Kristen, played by Eileen Davidson, was the one who figured out the whole original devil possession. So there's that. Mike Horton was the main doctor. Dr. Michael Horton was taking care of Marlena. He is not in town, obviously, although they could consider bringing him back in some way, shape, or form before the end of this, but ultimately, he was not much help in the process of curing Marlena, but he was the doctor on duty that would have been around for a front row seat. Obviously, the priest, whose name escapes me, Father Francis, I guess his name doesn't escape me after all, Father Francis would have been well passed away, probably in real life as well, so may he rest in peace, but he wouldn't be around. And Bo and Hope are not around, and incidentally, just a fun fact, the Bo that was around for the first one was actually Robert Kelker Kelly when he came in for a while and played Bo Brady. Hope was in town, but she still thought that she was Gina and didn't even know that she was Hope yet. Billy was around, and that's who Bo was actually with at the time, was Billy. Carrie and Austin were in town, as were a bunch of others, but my point is, a lot of the people that experienced the possession the first time around are not in town now, and a lot of the people in town now did not experience the devil possession the first time around, and that even includes Doug and Julie were not in Salem 25, 26 years ago during the time that the devil was running around causing all that trouble in St. Luke's and everything else. So that's something interesting, and that's what we have to keep in mind before I get into this next point, because this next point they did a good job with. So Johnny wants to talk to Tony because he believes that Tony, and even the script that he read said that Tony was in Salem at the time that the devil was running amok 25 years ago. The thing is that, as we found out years later, when Tony was running around Salem all those years ago, it was actually Andre, his cousin, who had plastic surgery just to look exactly like Tony. So Tony was not actually around back then. It was Andre. So Tony explains that to Johnny, and I will take it one step further to just add that Anna, who Tony has been with Anna on and off for a long time, but back when quote-unquote Tony was in Salem, this is getting a little bit confusing, so back when Andre was in Salem 25, 26 years ago and everybody thought that he was Tony, that version, I'll just say, of Tony was not with Anna at the time. He was with Kristen, his adopted sister. Yes, he was in a romantic relationship with his adopted sister, Kristen Demira. So actually, Johnny asks him about that. How is it back then that Tony/Andre was with Kristen if they're brother and sister? And Tony's explanation was simply that they weren't related by blood, but let's be honest, that was a little bit strange, to say the least. Anyhow, let's move along, shall we? I just wanted to talk about that. Johnny is trying to get a first-person account from someone who was there, but Tony does not fit the bill after all, because Tony wasn't Tony back then. Tony was Andre. So I hope everybody can I hope everybody that didn't experience all of that can keep track of what I'm talking about, because it's actually quite confusing, but that's Days of Our Lives for you. Chanel and Johnny further their romance as well, as I talked about a little bit already, where they go and have another date and they watch The Exorcist. And not only that, but Johnny apparently is now also a country singer, as he brings a guitar to the Horton Town Square and he serenades Chanel and gives her a little flower in her hair. So things are progressing with them, and we'll see where things go. Another thing that I noted is that Johnny still has not interacted with Rafe. Obviously, young Johnny had a very close relationship with Rafe. He used to wear those FBI jackets, and he wanted to become either an FBI agent or a police officer, just like Rafe when he was young. And I'm not saying that grown Johnny has to have any aspirations to be a police officer or in some type of law enforcement or anything like that. I'm just saying that it would be very interesting to finally see Johnny interact with the person who was his stepfather for quite some time. So I'm still waiting on an interaction between Johnny and Rafe, especially when it comes to, hey, have you seen my mom? She's missing. Nobody knows where she is. When's the last time you talked to her? Rafe might be somebody that people want to either just ask those questions in general or seek some help. Like, I'm not sure what happened to my mom. She's missing. Hey, FBI guy that used to be married to her, would you happen to have any insight, or what are your thoughts on the fact that my dear mother Samantha Brady is missing? So there's that, and I just wanted to talk about that. That's something that's perhaps key, and perhaps we'll see in the future, is an interaction between Johnny and Rafe. I don't know why I'm anticipating it so much, but I thought when he came into town that he would have some sort of interaction with Rafe. So now we're going to get into the main event, the devil possession. I'm just going to check our timestamp here. I said this was going to be a short one, but we're already at 28 minutes in. So let's try to make this not short and sweet, but let's try to wrap things up a little bit. So, as I mentioned off the top, somehow the devil got into Doug. They haven't explained how or why that had been possible, but we all know that a couple of weeks back, the devil left Doug and entered Marlena. Basically, the devil said, either Doug dies or you invite me back in. So Marlena allowed the devil to come back into her to save Doug. One thing that really bothers me, oh yeah, this is what I was going to do, and now that we have such time constraints, I'm not sure that we should, but let's do it anyhow. So the devil left Doug, entered Marlena, and if you listen to the devil's voice from years ago, it is not the same voice as we are now hearing in present day. So I didn't like that, because it's a little bit continuity-wise, it doesn't really mesh well with me. Why would they have a different voice than they had years ago? If it wasn't exactly the same, I would understand, because maybe Marlena's older, maybe the voice is a little bit different. But I found the devil's voice from 25 some odd years ago versus the one that they're using now. They're just not similar enough, and that doesn't make sense to me. And further to that, this time she doesn't seem to be hiding her eyes. So if you remember 25, 26 years ago, Marlena had to get sunglasses to hide her yellow eyes because she was possessed, until she finally got contacts, which I believe Celeste brought her. This is pretty good memory recall for somebody that never really watched the original possession storyline, but I may or may not have looked at it recently. We'll just keep it at that. But anyhow, so originally she had to hide her eyes with sunglasses so that no one would see her yellow eyes, and then she got contacts, which was an explanation for how she was hiding her yellow devil-possessed eyes. But this time, there's none of that so far, and so I'm not really understanding that. So there's two questions so far. How did the devil get into Doug? And why are Marlena's eyes not yellow when people are looking at her if she doesn't have sunglasses or contacts on? Maybe that stuff will be explained in the next couple of weeks, or maybe it will never be explained and it will just be a bunch of campy nonsense that doesn't make sense. I don't know. I'm waiting to find out, just like you guys. But Marlena goes to listen to her session that she had recorded between her and Doug, because Doug had come to her for some help in her office, and that's when everything went all awry. If you remember past episodes of our recaps, or if you've been watching the show, you know what I'm talking about. So the devil starts talking to Marlena through this recorder, which is absolutely stupid and ridiculous. Even a spirit box would have been far-fetched. Now, if you watch any ghost hunting or any mystical stuff or whatever, that type of stuff, you'll know that there's spirit boxes, which basically spirits can kind of allegedly talk to people through the radio frequencies. If you go through the like spirit box channels and you get like one word here and there, and they're trying to communicate with you from the other realm, that kind of stuff in of itself is kind of far-fetched. But the devil erasing the tape and then just magically talking to her through a recorder, I don't know what I'm supposed to do with that, but we're going to take a little bit of a break right now. Even though we're running long, I want to show you how the devil used to talk in the original show. So let's bring that up, and then we'll be back to finish things off in just a moment. So here we go. Hang on.
John, perhaps you ought to slow down. I'm sorry, Your Excellency, but every second counts. John, look out! Hands up, hands up! Whoa.
You're about to find out.
You see what's blocking the door?
Not yet.
For us to beat the evil one.
We meet again, old priest.
For the last time.
Yes. It is time for a reckoning. You've amused me in the past with your bag of tricks. But I've grown tired of them. It is over. Our games are over. You won't win anymore. This is one soul you won't save.
Alright, so a little bit of hokiness with that clip, so I apologize for that, but you did get to hear Marlena's voice in there, and if you've been watching this show currently, you can probably pick up on the fact that it's a little bit different. So let's see, we are about to wrap things up. I hope you enjoyed this super edition. Since we took a week off, I guess it's okay to make the episode a little bit longer, but I don't want to overwhelm everybody with this. We're probably almost as long as an actual episode of Days of Our Lives. I don't know if anybody wants to listen to me that long, but just to wrap things up, other than the voice discrepancies that I'm not a fan of, Doug tries to warn John that Marlena has been trying to kill him, and I think John has some idea that something is off with Marlena and with Doug, but he's not going to believe that Marlena is trying to kill Doug, so he obviously assumes that Doug is just not in his right mind, as he's been having some memory lapses, and nothing came up on the tests that indicated it was Alzheimer's. And now, of course, we all know that he was just possessed by the devil temporarily. Yeah, you know, that happens all the time to people. But anyhow, John should kind of be catching on, just based on the fact that he was a mercenary, he was a cop, he's a private investigator. He's seen a lot of things, and he went through the possession as well 25 years ago. So please don't make John an idiot. Please. The last possession storyline, John was kind of made to be like a complete oblivious idiot, and Kristen had to figure it out. And even after Kristen kept telling him that she believed that Marlena was possessed by an evil force, he would not believe it. And like I said last time, Kristen was the one that had to figure it out, and right now they're making John look like an idiot again. I mean, obviously something's wrong with her, and like I said, if they don't explain over the next couple of episodes, the next couple of days, why Marlena is able to not have these yellow eyes, like she doesn't have contact lenses in, and she doesn't have sunglasses on, and if she did have sunglasses on, and that should tip everyone off because they went through it 25 years ago, or at least John did. And if she doesn't have sunglasses or contact lenses on, then why are her eyes not yellow when she's walking around that hospital? I don't know. It doesn't really make any sense. I will say that not many, like I said before, not many people in Salem currently, not many people living in Salem now were around back then. There's a huge difference in which cast members are around now, which is interesting in of itself, because you'd think a lot of the same people would be around, but no, because even obviously Josh Taylor now plays Roman, but even Roman back then had left town. Roman at the time was played by Wayne Northrup, but he had already left town. So if you go through all the cast that was on the show back then versus all the cast that was on the show now, you don't get a lot of people that were around. Other than John, the only one that comes to mind right off the top of my head would be Abe Carver was around for the Devil Possession. But obviously he was with Lexi at that time. Lexi is not around. Sean and Caroline, may they rest in peace, are no longer around. And that's the other thing, is who's going to do the praying for Marlena? Because back then, the church was kind of more of a thing on Days of Our Lives, and they went to church and they prayed for stuff, and I'm not sure who fits that role anymore other than perhaps Julie. And maybe when Maggie and Victor come back into town, maybe Maggie will support Julie at the church or something, but there's no Caroline, there's no Sean, so there's no Alice Horton, may she rest in peace. And even back then there was, I don't think, Tom Horton anymore, unfortunately. So we'll have to see where this all goes. I'm trying to take it with a grain of salt. I'm trying to go for the ride and enjoy it for what it is, but it's not been great, ladies and gentlemen. So let's see what happens this week, and we will reconvene in about 6 or 7 days time. And I just want to thank everybody for listening, as always. Thanks to my new subscribers, thanks to my old subscribers, thanks to all my subscribers. Be sure to like and share and subscribe this video. It may be the longest one. It may be the longest one that we've ever done, so there is absolutely no point in rambling on. Thank you so much, and I will see you next time. Happy Halloween month, and enjoy the week. Thank you so much, and the rest of your weekend. Thank you so much, and I'll see you next time.